right. Hi, mamas. I am Lacey, your lactation counselor, and you're listening to the Early Motherhood Guide podcast, where motherhood is simply supported. And today I have the opportunity to talk with Andrea. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks for having me, Lacey. It's so good
Yeah.
to be here. And I love the mission of what you do. It's so awesome. And as a pregnant woman myself with our second, I am very excited come April to tune back into all the things that you do and all the support you provide because I didn't have that with my first 2 years ago.
Makes a difference, right?
Yeah, totally. I know. I think the breastfeeding thing could go smoother for sure.
Yeah.
So my name is Andrea Barr. Thanks again for having me. I am a certified coach. So I'm a certified executive coach with the International Coach Federation, but I actually specifically have really niched down into being a career coach for parents specifically. So I used to work in the advertising industry and in different corporate formats, did a couple career changes, went into HR, learning and development. Won't bore you with all those details. But through that journey, I realized that I have a huge passion for changing careers and career changes and how incredible that can be on your soul when you find work that you actually enjoy doing. And I also learned along the way in having my daughter that there are so few resources out there to support working parents or working moms. And I just want to fill that gap. And so I created a career coaching practice that's niched down into that space. And I also have a podcast. Lacey and I were swapping new podcast stories. And so I have a podcast called All Figured Out, where we just basically talk about things that we're trying to figure out. I don't have it all figured out. A lot of people don't. And so I share some of the wisdom of just how you can navigate your career as a parent. And then I have guest experts on who share their wisdom on all sorts of different topics, like a huge variety of topics, whether it's from resumes or the winter solstice, like all over the place. But it's really fascinating and been a lot of fun. So thanks again for having me.
Of course. Well, let's get into so there's just so many decisions to make as a parent, right? And so do you have any like steps that you have to go through those tough decisions? Like, do I go back to work? Do I switch a career? Do I work from home? Any of that?
Mm-hmm. It's such a good question. And I wish there was a silver bullet. I wish there was like here's the one thing you can do to just figure it all out. I would say if you think about it like a toolbox, it's kind of curating a toolbox for yourself of things that you know work really well for you. So that would be kind of like the umbrella, kind of the annoying answer that I'll give. And then I can get into some actual like steps that a person can take. So if you really think about that toolbox and think about the times in your life where things have been challenging or you've just required a bit more support, whether it was becoming a parent or if you have a sick family member, anything like that. And you think back, okay, what really helped me at that time? Or you had a big decision that you had to make, even if it was a decision like going to college and what program would you study? And if you really like look back into your own history, it can give you a lot of information that can help you for the future. And so things like going back and saying, how do I like to make decisions? Do I like to talk it out with friends and family members? Do I like to go inward and really reflect and journal? And if you're a person of faith, is it prayer? Like, whatever it might be for you, look back on like some of the history and what supported you in the past and add that to your toolbox. And if we create these kind of proverbial toolboxes, then whenever life hits us with a question or a decision or a hard time, we've already got this armor that can really support us. And sometimes we can feel lonely in certain situations. And so you can always kind of come back to this toolbox that is totally in your control. And so that's kind of like the broad stroke answer. And then the really simple way of looking at any sort of decision that you might be facing is first just gathering the information. So what's the decision? Like if you could really write it very simply down or speak it out loud very simply, like what is the decision that you're facing? Sometimes that is the hardest part, is being like, oh wait, I actually don't know what the question is that I'm asking or that I'm looking for. If it's around going back to work after having, kids, is the question just quite simply, do I want to go back to work or not? Or do I want to work or not? Or do I want to go back to this particular workplace or not? And so really clarify, like, what is the question? Because if you don't know what the question is, it's very hard to find the answer.
That's true. I never thought about that. Like you get so like in your own space that you kind of don't even realize that you don't even know what to ask yourself.
Totally, totally. And it's normal. We all do it. We all do it all the time.
Yeah.
You're just like, I'm hungry. There's no question there. It's like, I'm hungry. What should I have for lunch?
Yeah.
Okay. And you can like really boil it down. Okay. What are some good lunch foods that I like? It's just, it seems so obvious, but we forget we're busy. And so then the next phase would be just gathering kind of like the information that's at play. Like, what are the factors? Getting some information perhaps on like finances, or chatting with a partner or a family member, thinking about the people in your life that depend on you, like little humans. I know that's relevant to this audience. And setting kind of an intention as well. So if that first step is like gathering the information in the question, that second step would be setting an intention for like, how do you want to be when you're making this decision? And I don't mean that in a woo-woo sense, like truly, like, do you want to really feel powerful and clear and like, I've got this, and whatever people say about this decision I'm going to make, I actually don't care, because this is the decision that's best for me, my partner, my family. And that's a really important piece of the puzzle. And then obviously the third piece would be, what are your options? And so that's another hard one. Just as hard as it is to come up with like, what's the question? Sometimes coming up with like, what are the options available to me? And I think we come from a world where things were very binary. It's either a person works or they don't. A mom goes back to work and they're a working mom, or they're a stay-at-home mom. I kind of call a bit of BS on that. And I want to challenge that. There are some really cool, creative ways of having different, what work might look just different for everybody. So you could be somebody who stays at home a lot with your kids, but does work. Or you can just fully not work in like the, traditional sense outside the home. So what are your options? And then you can evaluate from there. And that could be, it's a whole other piece. But if you go back to your intention, you go back to what the question is, you go back to who in your life needs to be enrolled in this decision, you can really like boil it down to like, what are those key options that I have available to me? And then it makes things just feel so much more clear. And just like you can take a breath and really think things through.
Yeah, I love that too with the intention, because I think a lot of moms have a lot of guilt with everything, and feeling empowered on how you really want to feel and like where you're coming and your purpose, I think is very smart.
Totally. And having that enrollment with other people too, like being honest about that, not just keeping it in your head or in your journal or in your prayers, but actually telling people around you, like, this is how I feel. This is how I want to feel.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, there's so many other options, right? Like I know a lot of people are doing part-time, and so they're able to stay home like Friday through Monday, and then they just have 3 days a week at work, or, working on the computer at home, having a babysitter or nanny, or just during nap time. So there are a lot of options, which I love.
And it's not one partner works, one partner doesn't work.
Yeah.
You could also get creative with that too, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, how did you make a big decision, like going back to work?
That's a good question. I could have followed my own advice and maybe save myself a bit of headache. No, I'm kidding. I actually don't regret anything. So my story is this could be a long one, but I'll try to keep it short. I was working at a really large Canadian fashion retailer called Aritzia. It's getting pretty big in the States, so maybe some of your listeners know of it. And so I was working in learning and development there, leading a team of a subset of learning and development, and had a really thriving, in a sense, career there, and was doing quite well. And when I was pregnant, my husband actually was in the hospital for 2 months. I think it was like 7 and 8 or 8 and 9 months pregnant at the time. He has a congenital heart defect, and we knew there was surgeries involved. But long story short, there was an infection that was dormant for about a year. And all of a sudden, just things went from 0 to 100. And it was a really terrifying, scary time. So my workplace was incredible, actually. And they just said, go, like, drop your work, go, and we'll see you in a year. Because in Canada, we have the benefit of having a year off. Okay. Some government support, which is really nice. And so I did that. And then coming up to, the year, I was contemplating, like, that's what, everybody does when you go on a mat leave or you have a kid and you're going back to work, and you just have to kind of like sit with it and say, okay, what am I doing? It's been this, for me, it was a year of thinking about it and knowing before even having our child that I was like, something's not quite right in this for me, even before becoming a parent. But there was a factor of, I felt I'm being honest, like I felt they were so kind in giving me that time. They actually paid me for 2 months. I didn't work a lick. Like it was really unbelievable. So I felt this really strange pull.
Yeah.
I'm just going to bare my soul. So I'm basically going back to work at Aritzia. I made the decision to go back. And a piece of that was actually in my husband coming out of the hospital. He was on these really, really, really expensive drugs. And so medical insurance actually played into it hugely because he was still off work on medical leave. And that was it was interesting. It's interesting to actually even just like reflect that back to you and your audience and like fess up to that, if you will. But I own it. I own it now. And I actually talk about it. And I'm like, that was when I talk about, having the factors at play, really knowing what the question is. Like for me, it was, am I going back to Aritzia? Am I not? Another question was, am I going back to work? And am I going back to work in a different way? And when I looked at the factors of my dependence, I now had a husband I was supporting because he was still off work. I had a daughter. Yeah. And we had this really massively expensive drug that we had to pay for every single month. Like we're talking over $5,000.
Holy cow.
And so, yeah. And yeah. So it was crazy. And so I don't regret my decision to go back. So I did end up going back. I was there for 2 months. Unbelievably, my husband was able to get off of those drugs. He was doing really well. He found work. Like it was just all these amazing things happened at once, which is really interesting. Another thing I've unpacked in my journal a little bit. And then it allowed me to actually have the freedom of choice. So I know often we talk about these types of stories from a real place of privilege, like, oh, should I go back to work? Should I not? A lot of people don't have that option. And at the time, it felt uncomfortable for me to make the decision to not go back to work. It felt very financially irresponsible. So that was just that's just a story of somebody who kind of knew it wasn't right. Like I kind of knew going back to my new day one that it was probably going to be short-lived. And then I eventually decided to leave. And in my husband's whole health journey, we've just talked a lot about how short life is and the life that we want to have and how we want to show up with each other and our daughter. And I was miserable. And he was like, you just seem so unhappy. And I was like, I am so unhappy. So life is short. Took a huge financial cut and leaving my corporate job that was very lucrative. And I've never been happier. I'm now, working for myself, which has always been a dream. And so that's my long story long on my decision to go back to work.
Yeah, that's such a life change. Like the moment, like you're about to have this life change of having this beautiful baby, right? But it is life changing. And then you also have a husband that now you have to support as well, and having health problems, and now you need the healthcare. Obviously, like in the US, we understand that more than anyone.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I do understand that. Yeah. I know my husband still stays at his job because the healthcare is so good. So I understand. Yeah. So how was it like when you decided to make that pay cut and go switch to your new career? You're like, hey, life is short. Hey, like I don't want to do this job anymore. I want to work for myself. Like, how are you able to do that, to feel confident in your decision?
That's a really good question. I think that there's this level of motivation now, this ownership over the work that I do, and a level of pride where I'm like, the input and the effort I put in, I can truly see the outcome of that, not only from a financial perspective, but in the clients that I work with and I coach. Like they are making huge, bold decisions in their life in a really smart way that allows them to, then they email me to be like, I've never been happier, or look at the view from my office. I had a client sent me a photo from their, like a beautiful view of the ocean from their office. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. This makes it worth it. And I also just have faith in myself. I think my toolbox, like I've had to really grow my confidence and my faith in myself and the decisions that I make. And I just had this like, no, I'm going to like, we will be okay. I'm going to be okay. And I always also think about my 95-year-old self and what she would tell me. And when I put it in that perspective, she was like screaming at me, being like, leave, leave, leave. Like, you're never going to regret that. It's an expensive phase of life, having the littlest little ones.
Yeah.
And my happiness and how I show up for her and my husband at this time is just so much more important. So just really grounding and like in our values. My husband and I have talked a lot about just our values and our family and how we want to be together. And it was just so much more important. It's so much more important to us than money and upgrading our house or things like that.
Right. Yeah. I love that. It's very bold and exciting. I love how specific. It was like 95. Like I'll be yelling at myself.
Yes, not 96, 95. My 95-year-old self.
So how are you balancing going back to work and in the new mom life? How are you planning on doing that forward? How do you recommend that for other new moms?
A very good question. So, and again, I'm going to be transparent with what's working for us. And it's been having a nanny and knowing that again, though my income is not what it was in the corporate world, this is a really big investment period. So I'm investing in myself and our business. We're investing in our ease and calm in the chaos of it all. So like my husband and I both work from home. Our daughter is at home with her nanny. They go to this little play group for a couple hours. They come back. Like we see her 5 times a day. She sleeps for 2.5, 3 hours of that. So that's fine. And yeah, just there's a podcast I was listening to for years. It was a business podcast, but I think this is kind of cool advice. And the woman on it would always say, I encourage everybody to just get as much help as they can afford. And I was like, oh, that's so good. And I'm like, though we can like kind of barely afford a full-time nanny for us and just what we're trying to build and create in this season of life, it just works really well for us. And so again, it's like looking at all the factors. It's like any decision, kind of like what I was talking about, like looking at all the factors, including finances and what's just going to work really well. And for us, it was this setup. Full disclosure again, my husband is doing really, really well, but we just want to avoid infection, and daycares can be a real breeding ground for infection. So in coming out of everything that we just endured, we were like, you know what? Having her exposed to kids, but like not around kids 9 hours a day is what will make us feel more confident and feel better. So yeah, I would say just, really evaluating, like, I also have like a worksheet. I can share the link with you too, that I really love taking clients through. That's like, what's your ideal day? It's literally a spreadsheet I created. And it's just going through like, what do you want your day and your week to look like? And if you can work it back from things like that, can be really, really helpful. Like, do you want to be working, 5 or 10 hours a day? And what kind of support? Do you want to be cooking dinner? Do you want your partner to cook dinner? Do you want someone else to cook dinner for you? Like all these different things to kind of make it all work. And a practical tip is I love Google Calendar, and we have a shared calendar. I think a lot of people do, but that can really help kind of make it all work as well.
Smart. Yeah. I think outsourcing and getting help as much as you can on things to balance really helps. My kids are a little bit older now to where they can help a little bit, but if I had just littles where it was all on me, I think it would be essential to have some help.
Yes, totally. And that's a good point. Like, you're in a different season, so you're not, I think sometimes we get really wrapped up in taking advice from people without thinking about their context. So you could be like, oh yeah, maybe I should have a nanny. It's like, but it sounds like you're like, well, I don't really need a full-time nanny right now, but I know you get babysitting support, which is great. And like, that works for you. And that's what is most supportive to you right now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I love that. So you were talking about, you had some hacks on balancing all and making it work. I'd love for you to share more about that.
Yes. Okay. So I have, an episode that I did on this. I am obsessed with life hacks. I think it's gone down a little bit now, but definitely in different seasons of life. I actually go camping with my family a lot, and I would always look on BuzzFeed's like camping hacks list because it's just so fun, or travel hacks. Like, the things that people come up with are unbelievable. So anyways, long story short, I absolutely love a good hack. And becoming a parent, I said in my podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, that just like tenfold, especially for some reason in the early, like that first year. I know I shouldn't have been on my phone like too much all the time, but like there's a lot of breastfeeding happening and there's a lot of downtime. I could only read my book for so long. So there might be some scrolling, and I'd, hit up BuzzFeed. Anyways, but it's not where these tips came from, but that's just to say that I love a good hack. So the first one I could give would be Google Calendar, but that's pretty basic. So to take it the next step further would be, if you go into looking at my calendar right now, if you look at your My Calendars on the side. If you have Google Calendar, you can actually create different calendars, ones that are just for yourself. So I have one for my coaching business that's private. My husband can't even see that because it's confidential, like who I'm working with. And then we have a shared one. And then we also have one that's called meal planning. That one, because I find when I talk to parents, a lot of times it's cooking and cleaning. And it sounds like 1950s domestic housewife, but like that on both parents can just be so draining to always be thinking about when are we cleaning? What are we cooking? What are we cooking? What are we cleaning? It's just a lot, right? So meal planning, if you're somebody who just likes to like visualize what's to come and kind of sort that out in advance, the having like just, I think we'll probably have this on this day can be really nice.
Yeah.
If you were really into those meal delivery services where they kind of give you like HelloFresh or anything like that, where they give you the ingredients and then you cook it yourself, or even just like already meals that are just being delivered to you or anything like that, that can be super, super helpful because we were doing that and we love it. We still do it. Every time we've tried to cancel, we're like, bring it back. It's so good. It's just so helpful, reduces food waste. And the only thing with it was that we were realizing that if we didn't like have a scheduled day for when we were going to be making it, we'd forget about it. And then we're like, you're supposed to eat it within 3 days. And it was causing this unnecessary stress for something that was actually supposed to be helping us out. And so anyways, putting, just the meals that we think we're going to have just in the calendar. My husband cooks on Tuesday nights. We get our nanny to make one meal and then I cook the rest of the time because I like the person that opens the fridge and I'm like, there's mustard, ham, and cheese. Like, what can I make with this? And I like to get creative. Like, it's fun. So yeah, that's what we do for our calendars and meal planning, which has worked really well.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's one.
I think that is true. Like the meals can be so consuming. And that is something I'm trying to streamline for my goal for 2023 is to just streamline meals because it is all consuming. I love there was that smoothie company. They like brought you like I don't know what it's called.
The one here is called Revive.
Harvest.
I think there's a different.
Yeah.
Okay. I've heard of that one in the States. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a lifesaver. Like it was just a godsend for just having a baby. As I had my third baby while my husband was deployed. And so having just like meals already like just made where I can literally just throw it in a microwave was just, or in a blender, it was just life changing. So I totally agree.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Do you have any other that you'd like to share?
Yeah. You know what? The second one I would share is one I actually don't know how or when we came up with this. And I would love to give somebody credit because I have a feeling I didn't just conceive of this myself. But my husband and I have fallen off the bandwagon right now. However, we used to do on Thursday nights because I think Thursday night's such a fun, underrated night. So for me, that's like a fun night and we don't go out or anything like that anymore. So we would do alternating like life admin nights and date nights. And so every other week, we would switch off. And so we would have like an in-house date night where we just watch a movie and we're not working, we're unplugged and we can like watch a movie together. Or we get a babysitter and we go out for dinner. And then on the alternating nights, we do something that's less fun, that is doing life admin. So this was kind of born out of that, just like talking about like meal planning and cleaning and like how taxing that can be. All the life stuff, like I'm looking at actually a pile of papers because some people still send mail. Like I'm actually an American citizen, so I get like IRS statements still and just like that chaos. Or, just like booking trips to back home to see family and things like that. There was all these things that would pile up. And then what happened is it would get to the weekend and we're like, yeah, okay, we're so motivated. We've got these 10 things we want to do this weekend. But then we want to spend time as a family and we want to put up the Christmas lights and we want to go, like, we're going for breakfast with Santa this weekend and just like all these fun things. And we weren't prioritizing it. And then Sunday we're beating ourselves up and we're like, oh, we didn't do it. And it's just this cycle. And so we were like, okay, we need to nip this. And that's where the life at midnight came in. Now, I will say at the very beginning, it was so arduous. And we kind of end the night like not really wanting to look at each other because we're like, oh, that was like so boring and like kind of annoying. And we were kind of like not always on the same page about certain things or whatever. But then it got better and better. Like we really like there was a couple things that we kind of had to clean up, like going through our finances and this and that. And then once we created like just little systems, at midnight went from being like 3 hours the first time to like a lot shorter and a lot easier. And the to-do list had lessons. So there was stuff that was on there for 3 months that we just cleared off the plate. And so it's just kind of like keeping ahead of some of that stuff can be really helpful.
I love that. And mixing it up. So it's not like you dread Thursday, because it's like every Thursday you're organizing your closet or going through junk mail.
Oh my gosh, no.
Mixing
Oh
it.
my gosh, I forgot the key piece of that is ordering takeout. Like that would be our takeout night.
Yeah.
So if you have to go through your closet or organize the junk mail, pair it with takeout. And then there's something in the night that's like you can look forward to.
There you go. I love that.
Yeah.
Have a drink, have some
Yes.
takeout.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would get crazy.
Yes, have fun with it. Just don't delete anything or throw away something you're not supposed to.
I know. It's good because then there's two sets of eyes. I just throw everything out and then it causes chaos.
Yeah. I'm the one that I don't need it anymore. I haven't used it in a week. It's gone.
It's good. It's really good.
So anyway, so when you are making a decision, you've made a decision. When do you think it's a good time to reevaluate how things are going?
It's a really good question. I would say it's obviously scale it to the level of the decision or what the decision is all like the nature of the decision, if you will. So if we're talking about careers, like a career change, for instance, starting a new job, I think that is one where I don't know that I would say, like when I talk to clients about this, I wouldn't say that I'm like every 6 months you should be reevaluating, but I think that that's where you really have to tap into your intuitive side and notice for yourself what are some of the cues when something isn't working for you in any aspect of your life. So for some people, it's anxiety rises. For some people, it's obsession or like kind of like a hyperfixation on something, like getting too into their work and it just becomes all consuming, all they're doing, all they're thinking about. Could be with like, someone with like food or exercise, like that could be also like, that could be a trigger or a warning sign when you become really hyper obsessed with something that's like, okay, what's happening here? Like, what am I maybe trying to mask or what have you? And so really like, that's another one where you kind of have to like look inside yourself for a quick second, like pull up the hood and be like, okay, what are some of the warning signs for myself? So for me, definitely, it takes shape in like a little bit of anxiety and actually like the mornings. When I wake up in the morning, like how am I feeling? What does my morning look like? Am I excited for my day? I wake up now and I open my email, like I'm excited to open my email. I can't say I had felt that in the last 10 years in my corporate life. Like the emails gave me such a sense of dread. And so when you feel that point of friction, or if you're a very visual person, if you look at it like a river and there's just these like massive boulders in place that are kind of causing these like rapids, like what is that for you? And when do those boulders come up? And that's a really good time to just pause and say, okay, what's happening here? And, to the best of your ability, try not to regret decisions that you make and just take them as learning opportunities. Like, whoa, that one decision caused a huge boulder in my life. Very interesting, and just like come at it with like a curiosity and like, oh, that's really interesting. And then you can learn from it and move on.
I love that. Yeah. I think sometimes like as a parent, you're just like, there's so many decisions that you have to make. And so when you set things and then maybe it's not like sustainable, So for me, it's like, I want to have a completely screen-free family, and like most of the time it could be sustainable, but then other times if my husband is gone for, a month at a time, like it might not be sustainable. So like sometimes you just really have to like reevaluate and just be like, okay, maybe it can't be 100% screen-free at this moment, but I can always make a plan to make it better than it was last time or something like that,
Mm-hmm. And give yourself the grace and the permission to change your mind.
Yeah.
Like you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to have the intention to be less screen oriented.
Right.
And if you're like, oh, but I said we were going to be screen free, you can take that back and you can be like, today we're not screen free. Today is all about the screens because I feel very sick and my husband has been deployed. Like it can be a fact of life.
True. Yeah. And I think that's another thing with a lot of my audience too. When they're breastfeeding, there's a lot of reevaluating, like, how is this going? Is this sustainable? Is it like pumping and breastfeeding sustainable? Is it exclusively breastfeeding sustainable? Is it exclusively pumping sustainable? So I think every like so often just being like, okay, this is not so enjoyable. Like, how do we reevaluate this and how do we change going from here?
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about your podcast. So you have a podcast for parents as well. I'd love to hear more about that
Mm.
and where we
Yeah, that
can
sounds like
find
a
out more about you.
oh, so sweet. Thank you. I think our podcasts go hand in hand very well. Like you can people can really get the support that they need in those breastfeeding days, however long that lasts. And then inevitably that question about work is going to come up for most of us. It's the All Figured Out podcast, and it's available wherever you find your podcasts. You just type in All Figured Out, and it's the artwork is a photo of me and my who's not so little anymore, little baby on the front cover. And yeah, so it's just a place to just chat about how to make it all work as a working parent. It's definitely supportive for those who aren't even parents. It's just a lot of like life advice and learnings, but with a focus on supporting those who are naturally supportive in their life, who are parents. And if you are interested in connecting with me, my name is Andrea Barr, and my Instagram handle is Andrea Barr Coaching. Love answering DMs and things like that, and would love to chat. And I also have a website, which is andreabarr.com. But yeah, those are kind of the three places I hang out.
That's an easy one to remember.
Yes.
All right, and I will link all those down in the show notes as well.
Amazing.
Yes. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you for everyone listening at the Early Motherhood Guide podcast. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much, Andrea. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Lacey.
Yes.